Today we're going to tackle a topic that is so freaking common. I get this all the time from people. The differences between forming your corporation or LLC in the home state where you live. So, if you live in California, filing in California, using a state like Nevada or Wyoming, or even potentially Delaware as what they call a preferred state. And so for the person that's setting out to get their business going, where should you be organized? Which jurisdiction in our 50 states, currently 50 states at least, 50 states, where should you be? Okay, first of all, let's just get clear on kind of what the differences are. Every state, because we are 50 United States, every state has its own system through the Secretary of State's office in the individual states of what the rules are for being a C corporation, an S corporation, an LLC, a limited partnership, a professional corporation, a nonprofit entity, and so on. Everybody's got their own rules, and there are some consistencies generally in the application of how those companies, those different organizations work. There's a reason that there are multiple ways you can be set up. It's like a different tool in your toolbox, right? You don't just use a hammer for everything. You need a hammer and a wrench and a screwdriver and a saw, etc. Every state has kind of got their own way of doing things. On top of that, some states have specifically organized their laws to attract business to them, especially businesses that do certain things. Delaware, and especially if you're on the East Coast, you may have heard that Delaware is a great place to incorporate. And you know what? Delaware is a good place to incorporate, particularly if you want to go public at some point. You want to be taken public by a venture capital group or by investment bank, or you want to be acquired by a public company. In those situations, Delaware's law, which are very slanted towards publicly traded companies, you're going to be a mile ahead because the lawyers that are going to do those transactions already understand Delaware law. They know how to put pieces together under Delaware law. There's a reason why over 3/4 of the publicly traded companies in the United States have their head office, at least on paper, in Delaware, because the laws of Delaware are uniquely good for publicly traded companies. So if that's your path, great. Delaware is super. Now, since almost nobody goes public, right? There's over 22 million corporations and LLCs in the United States, and there are less than 3,000 publicly traded companies. So the vast majority of people are not going to go public. If you're just doing your business, and let's say you're manufacturing, you're a service business, you're a restaurant, which I guess could be considered a service business, you're a law firm, accounting firm, landscape maintenance company, garbage company, fill in the blanks. You lay underground cable, you build sewers, you build houses, whatever you do. Odds are you're going to want to be organized in your home state, because the way the law works is wherever you're doing the work, you need to be in compliance with that state's laws. So for your main primary business, in most, not all, but most cases, and I'll talk about the exceptions here in a minute. In most cases, the best place to form your LLC or your corporation is in the state where the work is getting done. Now, you might live across a state line and you live in one state that's got particular laws, but your company and where you go to work every morning is in a different state. Wherever the work is getting done is where you probably, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving you legal advice, but as a business guy, I'll tell you that's probably where you ought to be set up, in your, what we call a home state company, okay? So why are Nevada and Wyoming of interest? What's the big deal there? How would you even use them? Well, Nevada and Wyoming, if you don't live in those states, provide some interesting things. First, let's talk on a macro scale. There's a reason why Visa clears their transactions through a company in Nevada. There's a reason why Barnes & Noble has their Western United States distribution in Nevada. It's not because it's convenient to a lot of bookstores. There's a reason why Amazon has huge warehouses in Nevada. And if you're carrying a lot of inventory or you're processing a lot of money or both, Nevada, and because Wyoming's significantly just a duplicate of Nevada, they kind of follow generally what Nevada does. And I'll talk about Wyoming in a minute. But for big companies, there's no tax on your rolling stock, your inventory. There's a reason to keep a whole bunch of stuff that's waiting to be sold in Nevada because you pay less tax. For the rest of us who maybe are not carrying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of inventory in a warehouse, but we're just doing stuff. So if you may want to use Nevada or Wyoming for the privacy aspects that they provide. Because in those two states, the shareholders are not in the public record. So nobody really knows who owns the company in Nevada or in Wyoming, especially if you're using a C corporation. In a C corp, you're not disclosing who the members are like you would in an LLC or in an S corp. In a C corp, you can have total privacy in Nevada and Wyoming. So, and I'll go into this in another video, but one of the reasons you might use Nevada or Wyoming is to be a storehouse or a quiet holding company of assets that you're loud engaging with the public company in whatever of the other 48 states. There you're doing a lot of business, you're making money, and you may have a relationship with a company in Nevada that you owe money to, or they own intellectual property that they're licensing to you to use, or maybe that Nevada company owns all of your heavy equipment, your bulldozers, your dump trucks, all that stuff, your cranes, and it leases them to the company in the other state where all the disclosures are out loud in the public. So you use Nevada or Wyoming as a privacy haven to give you an edge from a litigation perspective, an asset protection perspective. Also, you might use a trust in those states where they have very, very solid trust law. In my case, I have companies in a bunch of states, but we use Nevada and Wyoming strategically when we need more privacy around certain elements of what we're doing. Privacy doesn't mean you have to hide. Privacy doesn't mean it's because you're cheating or doing something wrong. Privacy is just because the whole world doesn't need to know what your business is. So if you're doing something criminal, whatever privacy you think you can have will get washed away. But if you're doing something that's upstanding and legal and appropriate, and you're using the laws of different jurisdictions to accomplish your outcome, then you're in good shape. What's inappropriate would be to be running revenue, let's say from the state of California, which is a high tax state, or Oregon, through Nevada or Wyoming, trying to avoid state taxes. That's just illegal. That's called tax evasion, just like if you were out trying to outsmart the IRS by using foreign companies. This isn't about cheating. This isn't about fraud. This isn't about trying to get away with something. What it is about is trying to give yourself every bit of protection you can possibly get against frivolous litigation that might come at you as you're out there engaging in the world. So most of the time, you're going to be formed in your home state or wherever the work is getting done. And as appropriate, you'll use Nevada and Wyoming as privacy companies to shield ownership or to hold wealth over there. And in Delaware, if you're looking to be public or be acquired by a public company or do something in the public markets realm, then in those unique cases, for a few of you, Delaware may be the ideal jurisdiction. The main thing is get a little advice, talk to somebody, talk to a lawyer, talk to a CPA, see what the difference is. Strategically, you're going to make decisions that are going to serve you. So my primary home is in Washington State. No state income tax. I have a business across the river in Oregon that does certain kinds of work and pays taxes on the money earned in Oregon, but there's no business tax against. Washington has a tax against your top line. So even if you're losing money, you still have to pay taxes on, even though you're losing, you're paying it on the top line. Well, I don't want to have a business in that state. I have a business across the river in the other state. Money that's earned there has to go through the Oregon state taxes. Other things I own get the benefit of me being a Washington resident. So use the tax laws and the individual state laws to your advantage so that you get the best bang for your buck, and don't go off kind of half-baked and try to do something tricky. That'll almost always get you into trouble. There's tons of resources out there. You can certainly go to lawflunusa.com and look at tables that describe different states and their different benefits. And you can always write to me, Aaron Young at Laughlin USA, if you want to ask questions. And until the next time, this is Magnify Your Wealth. And I hope this helped you out today. And we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.